Well, welcome to the channel's viewers. Just as a civilian spectator and a concerned Australian, I have been watching very closely the presidential race in the United States, as I believe something needs to change. I'm not going to go into who's done what and who hasn't, but what we do know is there are certain people that do not want, at any cost, Donald Trump to become president. This interview, the Vice President Kamala Harris, in a Fox News interview with Brett Bayer, really opened my eyes to something that I hadn't seen before, and that was Kamala Harris, rather than being put in a situation where she can find answers to questions, she was placed in a situation that she knew she was walking into that has really exposed her capabilities and her tolerances, which are very minimal. I'm going to turn to this interview now and comment on what I see as a theologist and a concerned Australian for the United States, and see what I can get out of this for the viewers.
Madam Vice President, thank you for the time.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Brett.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Now, it's a very straightforward question, isn't it? We're just asking for a figure. How many immigrants have you let into the country? And I wonder what her answer is going to be. Let's just do some background. Well, the New York Times, which is very conservative, says since President Biden took office, migrants have crossed the southwestern border without documentation more than 3.3 million times, the largest number over an 18-month period in decades. Not only are these people crossing the border by foot, they're also being flown into and flown around the United States.
Okay, we head to Texas now, where the U.S. government is flying migrants to other states. Only on News Nation. This is new video from this morning. Adult migrants zip-tied, some with children accompanying them, ultimately ushered onto these planes. News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Enton is live for us in El Paso. So, Brian, do we have any idea where these individuals are going?
Well, Nicole, some of them we know we've been able to track. They're going to states like Florida, Pennsylvania, and Louisiana. Other flights we just haven't been able to track. It's impossible on the apps. It's like the planes are invisible. They've also put these tarps up at the airport in the area where these migrant flights happen. I want to show you how we've been able to get the video. We found this one little spot where there's barbed wire, but you can see through and you can see the charter planes. There's one there right now that's pulled in. Basically, what will happen is buses will show up. They'll go inside the airport. They'll unload the migrants and they'll put them on the plane. Bright and early Wednesday morning, the migrant flights at El Paso International Airport started boarding. Charter flights paid for by the federal government are moving migrants who cross the border to other parts of America.
They're not paid for by the federal government, they're paid for by the American taxpayers.
Just like yesterday, buses tried to block our view from filming, so we got low and found an opening in the fence to get this footage. Migrants with zip ties around their wrists were loaded onto the plane. Some of them had children with them who were visibly emotional. We've watched the migrant flights all week long. Some are impossible to track, others we've been able to figure out the destinations. This flight, full of unaccompanied minors who crossed the border, flew to Jacksonville, Florida Monday. News Nation cameras were there when the plane landed, and the migrants got on buses, stopped at a rest area, and then traveled south on Interstate 95. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' press secretary says they are aware of the migrants being moved to Florida, but the federal government is not giving them specifics.
I got money from the legislature, which will be available starting in June, so that if Biden is busing illegal aliens into our state, we're taking those buses and rerouting them to Delaware and other jurisdictions.
Okay, viewers, so there's definitely a lot of underhandedness happening in the Biden-Harris administration. This was 2 years ago. Okay, this report was 11 months ago, viewers.
Now, this vote comes as Governor Brian Kemp gets ready to deploy more National Guard troops to ramp up U.S. security at the southern border. And tonight, roughly 29 members of Georgia's National Guard are already in Texas. The governor now says that he's going to be sending 15 to 20 more in the spring to help build the new command post. Now, Governor Kemp shared some of those numbers to support this decision.
8.5 million illegal immigrants have crossed the border since Joe Biden took office.
But is that really true? So tonight we're going to be using some of the data from the U.S. Customs Border Protection Agency and Homeland Security to verify if that's true. President Joe Biden took office January 2021, and according to the numbers just released today by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency, we counted all of the encounters agents recorded from February 2021 until December 2023. That number does add up to about 8.5 million people. However, the data that is not true is the number Governor Brian Kemp quoted about the encounters. The 8.5 million people that cross the border illegally are not necessarily individual people. That count could also include one person counted several times. So the number of encounters involving expulsions or people being removed from the United States during that same time period is much lower at 3.2 million people. So we can verify, no, 8.5 million.
This is how ignorant some of these people are. Could you imagine 3.5 million people coming into Australia? It's just unbelievable. And these people will find ways to lessen the numbers.
And we want to turn to an NBC News exclusive we have tonight on the number of illegal border crossings. Officials from the Department of Homeland Security telling NBC News that the number of migrants illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border has risen since the start of September, with Border Patrol apprehending 7,500 migrants just on this Sunday alone. NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley joins us now with that exclusive reporting. Julia, I want to put that 7,500 number in perspective, right? According to the latest data that is available to us on border crossings, from July border crossings, the average just over 4,300. And we saw this decrease in border crossings with the expiration of Title 42 in May. But now there's a much different story. Explain.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. You and I were down there when they got to record highs, near 10,000 a day, just before the end of Title 42. Then new policies came into place to make it more restrictive for asylum. And when we talked to people who were on the other side of the border in Mexico thinking about crossing, they were kind of in a wait-and-see moment to see how tough these restrictions might be. We saw the numbers start to increase over the summer, and now they are really rapidly increasing. We've been able to see in certain sectors some rises, some evidence of that rise. Street releases when they're not able to find enough room for shelters in cities like San Diego and Nogales, Arizona. Then we've also been able to see the numbers of families rising in areas like Tucson and Rio Grande Valley. Now this actually takes into account a snapshot of one day across the entire border where they saw 7,500 crossings in a single day. And I'm told that's really on average about what they've seen the past week or so, as these numbers are starting to rise as they typically do this time of year. But it's significant now because it's showing that those new policies put in place in mid-May, just when you and I left the border because of the end of Title 42, those new policies are not having as big of an impact as they did initially. And a lot of it is because Mexico can only take back so many migrants per day that they turn away. Migrants are learning that, starting to take things into their own hands, and starting to get frustrated when they're not able to get appointments or try to get into the U.S. the legal way.
Yeah, we have some reporting from the Darien Gap coming up later in the broadcast that is sort of shocking about how many more are coming through South and Central America right now as we speak. I do want to ask you, tell our viewers where on the border we're seeing this sort of crush and the cities around them.
Well, we know that the busiest sector right now is the Rio Grande Valley, seeing about 1,800 per day. But that's a sector that's used to seeing a lot of migrants. And so they're able to quickly into shelters, into charities. But the second busiest sector is actually in Del Rio, Texas. The area of Eagle Pass, very remote, very small, is seeing a large number of migrants. In fact, Fox News reported that they saw 2,200 cross just between midnight last night and 10 a.m. this morning. Now, NBC News hasn't independently verified that, but we have seen pictures large numbers of migrants crossing there. And it's in areas like that where they don't have the infrastructure to quickly process, shelter, and try to figure out who can actually stay in the United States to make an asylum claim. Those are the areas that get the most overwhelmed the fastest. We're also seeing the areas of Tucson and El Paso at number 3 and 4 in terms of the busiest border sectors, Tom.
Donald Trump.
She doesn't know what she's doing. She's the worst vice president / border czar. She was the border czar. All of a sudden, she's saying she's not. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's the worst vice president / border czar. She was the border czar. All of a sudden, she's saying she's not. I don't want to get you in trouble, but she's the border czar. All of a sudden, she's saying, I'm not the border czar. You know why she says that? Because there's never been a border in the whole world that's leaked like this border, with all those millions and millions of criminals coming through. Many of them are criminals, hardened criminals. All they had to do is put it up. They could have had it completed in 3 weeks, but they said, let's have open borders. Now she said, she came out and she said last night, oh, we have to have a border. Her whole life is about open borders. And if they win, there's no border. We'll have 100 million people come in from the rest of the world.
Okay, so look at the posture of Kamala Harris. She knows the question that's coming. She knows that this is where she's hung herself as the vice president. Let's see what her reply is to this question.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
You'll see when she was asked this question, her eyelids have dropped. The disappointment. She's been cornered. Let's see what her response is. She doesn't look comfortable. She knows this could cost her the position as president. Let's see what is she going to give a figure, or is she going to do a normal beat around the bush, don't answer the question, waste time response?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration, because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people...
No, it's not, viewers. This is where this woman goes wrong. It's not a topic of discussion. It's a national crisis. People being murdered, robbed, they're taking over hotels, motels in some parts of America. She seems completely out of touch with how serious the situation is. Millions and millions of people, a lot of them criminals, raping the American females and robbing and stealing, and yet she's detached from what she has caused.
People want to rightly have, and you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you
now,
just a number?
Yeah, so he does know what she's going to talk about and the nonsense that she's going to say, and he is ready.
You think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point.
Yes, I think Kamala Harris does need to get to the point. And the point is, how many immigrants have come into the country under your administration? She's shocked if you look at her facial expression. She's trying to get control of the situation and authority over this man. But she will not answer the question, because she does not want to take responsibility and accountability for her negligence as the protector of the border. She's completely failed.
Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
The point is they have a broken immigration system because of the policies that she deleted that Donald Trump was building to protect the border. She deleted those. She opened the borders. You can see by the expression on her face, I don't think she believes what she's saying herself. It's all rehearsed, most of it.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of...
See, she's not ready. She is not ready for someone to stop her with her on the carousel rhetoric. But this this is a one-off chance, right? She's walked into a situation where she is not in control. Now she's got the hand out. You can see, stop, because she doesn't want to confront the issue. And these people are dangerous. Unresolved is the primary cause for the brokenness of humanity.
I'm not finished. We have
It's a
an
rough
immigration
estimate of
system
6 million people
that
have been
needs to be-
released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question, I promise you.
I was beginning.
No, she was not answering it because the answer was a figure. And she's beating around the bush. She's turned up late. This man's got a limited amount of time. And he has been well equipped and well prepared for what this woman does. Look at the shock. Look at the dismay in her body language. What is he doing to me? What is going on here? Uh-oh.
Beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies.
Are you really doing this to me? Look at the body language, slouched, disappointed, trying to put across, are you really doing this to me, Brett? You bet he is.
Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
Now, let me just say, Donald Trump is factual when he talks about all this stuff. He's got no reason not to be. The burden, and she talks about burden and all this sort of stuff, is on Kamala Harris. And I think this guy he deserves an award for the way he's done this, because he has not let this woman stand over him.
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress before the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes,
She does not want to be corrected. She will not stand for somebody that is not going to let her stand over them.
Ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on...
My question, viewers, is this, and I've watched hours and hours. I've actually watched this interview half a dozen times right through. Why did she open the borders? This man's ready for this, and I'm going to cut out a little bit of a waffle, because that's all. It's just waffle. She's not answering the question, and I want you to see how this man gets to the point with this woman. You can see the scowl on her face where she's just finished saying, I'd like to finish. She's trying to get control here. Now let's watch what she says.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people.
The only way you could conclude anything about what she's saying here is she's completely deluded, and she's trying to get people to buy into the fantasy that she hasn't opened the borders and that there isn't millions upon millions of criminals and illegal immigrants come into the country. She's trying to get people to believe a delusion and a fantasy. And the sad part about it is a lot of them do, despite the facts.
And our focus has been on fixing a problem.
She never tried. See, the problem is the problem that she created. She's created the problem. The integrity and the momentum that Donald Trump had in trying to shut the borders was taken away when she came into office because they opened the borders. So she magnified the problem. The problem rests with her. This is the thing. And if you look at her body language down there, I think she's trying to convince herself that what she's saying is real when it's not.
And from day one then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points.
You'll watch that she takes a gulp in a minute because this is getting too much for her. You can see she's not comfortable at all. At all. She's going to take a gulp in the middle of it speaking. Watch.
That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting.
Did you see that? I just want to play that again for you.
On supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That
viewers, look, I'm in Australia. I'm just a bricklayer and a theologist. I know for a fact that she's lying. She's absolutely lying. She couldn't have cared less about who was crossing the borders and who's weren't. This is crazy.
Border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States.
The thing is, this is the thing, viewers, the Border Patrol people will take anything to help themselves. Okay? They'll take anything. Now, she's saying it's going to stop. See, there's drugs coming in. She's allowed drugs to come in. And let me just say, in part of her policies, she's got so many. One of them is to legalise marijuana. Now, that might be all right for people that need it for medication, but what about the people that use it just to ruin themselves and things? And that's just to win votes as well. This woman is a radical.
Stage, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing.
Which she has contributed to by allowing these illegal immigrants to cross over an open border. And let me say too, these people are flying them in as well, which I demonstrated at the start of the video.
People. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done.
Yes. That's irrelevant. Well, see, this is the thing. You can be a fantastic athlete and have scores of trophies and accolades, but if you go down the wrong path, those accolades are of the past. Okay? Whatever she's done in the past, and she's done some terrible things to people in the past, incriminating people, and she brought in a law about people who weren't sending their children to school, and there's some terrible stories what she did to parents. But she's caused the fentanyl problem, the increase of the fentanyl problem.
As the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
See, he's not interested in that nonsense because she's trying to stroke her own ego. Viewers, I'm going to try and cut this off.
Trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
And now she started the Donald Trump thing. Viewers, that's part one. I'll see you in part two. Bye for now.